This video is to show you what we mean by the atmosphere and Earth summary. You might have noticed on your prep sheets for the last few weeks it says, like at the bottom, if you finish all that you can start your atmosphere and Earth summary activity. This is what we're using for your study notes for this part of the Spaceship Earth topic. And the way it works is we want you to fill in a little poster to show all the stuff that you know about this particular topic rather than just writing just pages of notes. You don't have to use this poster template, but this has been designed to help you with your study notes. So what you need to do is you need to click on this link. You hold down Control and click on this link, and that'll take you to our Valerian Zoo Mission blog, and it's got the first post here is instructions on what you got to do, and it's called Designing a New French and Mind Homeworld. Basically, the Valerians want you to send back some basic plans for the planet Earth, including the structure of the atmosphere and the structure of the planet, so they can start building the French and Mites habitat back in the Valerian Zoo. And so the things I need to know from you are what's the structure, composition and temperature of the planet, the processes that shape the surface of the planet, etc, 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 etc. And it's got some tips here on what they want you to do. So if you look at our little poster again, it's broken up into a few sections. And it's probably hard to read because I've zoomed out so far. But it's got Earth's atmosphere, blocking radiation, Earth's atmosphere maintaining temperature, Earth's atmosphere composition and structure, Earth's inner structure, and Earth's surface, landforms and rocks. So in each of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections, they're the 5 areas of stuff we've learned about in this atmosphere topic. And it's got some hints on the website too. It says, for the structure of the atmosphere section, perhaps you could draw the layers, identify their thickness, identify where the ozone layer is, and identify the gases and the percentage in the atmosphere. So what you might want to do down here is, rather than just writing that in notes, actually draw little pictures. Like you might get your pen, and assuming this is going to work for me today, you could even just, rather than writing notes, start drawing in the layers of the atmosphere. And you can start naming them: the troposphere, stratosphere, etc, etc, etc. You can even put a little note in here that the ozone layer is in the stratosphere, and over here you might write some notes about what are the most common gases you find in the atmosphere and what's the difference between the atmosphere and space. And by doing that little visual picture, it should be an easy way to memorize this sort of stuff, and you've got your summary of the Earth's atmosphere. Up here for blocking radiation, or we should go back and check the notes again, I suppose, see what it says. So come back here, it says for blocking radiation, perhaps you identify and draw the layer of the atmosphere that blocks UV, explaining why blocking UV is important, and identify how humans have damaged this layer. So up in this region, you might start drawing some pictures. Okay, so here is the ozone layer, and I'll label this as the ozone layer. I'd note that ultraviolet light comes in from the sun, only a tiny bit gets through because most of it's blocked by the ozone layer, and make a note about that. I'd write down why it's good to block UV, or what the bad things that UV does to people is. And I might also note that humans have made some chemicals that have damaged the ozone layer, which means that more ultraviolet light is actually getting in, and what are the problems with that. So that's a nice little way of summarizing the ozone layer and what the ozone layer does. In the last little section we've got, it asks us to how the Earth maintains temperature. So it says, explain the natural greenhouse effect, what gases are greenhouse gases, what have humans done to increase the greenhouse gases, and the consequences. So once again, over here in our little picture, we might start drawing some pictures over here. We might actually, you can even divide this up into 2, for example. And over here we could talk about the natural greenhouse effect, and we could talk about how sunlight comes in to the Earth's surface and warms the Earth, and some of that heat tries to escape the Earth but is actually trapped in by the greenhouse gases. Some does escape though out into space, but that keeps the Earth nice and warm, and you could write a little description of what a greenhouse gas is and why it's good that we have a natural greenhouse effect. But on this side you might talk about what's called the enhanced greenhouse effect, and you might note that humans have put lots and lots more greenhouse gas in the atmosphere, so when the sunlight gets in and the heat is made, all the heat is trapped, or more heat is being trapped inside the atmosphere, which is increasing the temperature. And what you can talk about here is some of the things that humans have done to make extra greenhouse gases. You could talk about here what are some of the bad consequences of global warming, and you might talk about some of the things we can do to try and stop the problem. So by doing these 3 sections, we summarized the atmosphere structure, we summarized how the ozone layer works, and we summarized what the greenhouse effect is and the enhanced greenhouse effect is. On this side, we're still working through our Earth structure thing, but as you can see on this side, it's got Earth's inner structure. What you could do is here is you could go and start labeling the layers and actually putting some notes in. This is, for example, the core. You could say what the core is made of and how hot it is. You could talk about here the outer core, what it is, how hot it is, what it's made of, the mantle and the crust. You could even make a little note about how we know about the inside of the Earth even though we haven't been there. This section down here, Earth structure, landforms and rocks. You can spend a bit of time talking about igneous, metamorphic and sedimentary rocks. You can define what they are and give some examples on how they're made. And when it says Earth's landforms, you can talk about how there's two processes that shape the Earth's surface as weathering and erosion. And you can define both of those terms, and you give some examples of how weathering works and how erosion works and things that might cause weathering and erosion. And so by doing that little poster, you've summarized that whole section of the Spaceship Earth topic.